My name is Margaret. I am 65 years old. And the night my son Lucas stood on a stage, in front of 500 of the most powerful people in the logistics industry and told them I was too old to understand the future, he didn't just break my heart. He tried to erase 40 years of my life. I should have seen it coming. The signs were there, hidden in the glossy spreadsheets and the closed-door meetings he stopped inviting me to. But a mother has a blind spot the size of a continent when it comes to her child. I looked at Lucas and didn't see the shark in the Italian suit. I saw the boy who used to sit on my lap, in the cabin of a delivery truck, pretending to steer, while I double-clutched a rusted gearbox on the I-95. But that night at the 40th anniversary gala of Vanguard Logistics, the company I built from a single garage with nothing but grit and a second mortgage, the blindfold was ripped off. Mom, Lucas had said to me that morning, his voice smooth as polished glass. Tonight is going to be special. A real tribute to the past. Just wear something comfortable. You know, something that says retirement looks good on you. I had laughed then. I thought he was joking. I had no intention of retiring. I was the chairwoman. I was the one who knew the name of every driver, every warehouse manager, every customs officer from Shanghai to Seattle. Lucas was the CEO, yes. I had given him that title 3 years ago because I wanted him to shine, to feel the weight of the crown. But I was the foundation. You can change the flag on top of the castle, but if you remove the foundation, the whole thing crumbles. Lucas was about to learn that lesson the hard way. But first, let me tell you how we got to that ballroom, to the moment where I stood trembling with a cheap plaque in my hand, while my own son sold me down the river. 3 hours before the gala, I was in my bedroom, struggling with the zipper of my dress. It was a deep navy silk, elegant and authoritative. I had bought it specifically for tonight. I wanted to look like the matriarch of the industry. I wasn't just Lucas's mother. I was Margaret Vance. In the 80s, when men wouldn't even shake my hand, because I was a woman in trucking, I had forced them to respect me by outworking every single one of them. As I pinned my silver hair up, I looked at the photo tucked in the corner of my vanity mirror. It was me and my late husband, Bill, standing in front of our very first van. We looked tired, dirty, and incredibly happy. Lucas was a baby in a carrier strapped to Bill's chest. "We did good, Bill," I whispered to the photo. "The boy is running the show now. He's taking us global." I truly believed that. I believed Lucas was the visionary I had raised him to be. Sure, he was a bit aggressive with the budget. He liked expensive office furniture and consultants who charged by the minute. He talked a lot about synergy and disruption and AI integration, words that often meant firing good people to buy expensive software that didn't work. But I was always there to fix it. I was the safety net. When he overspent, I smoothed things over with the bank. When he alienated a longtime client with his arrogance, I took them out to dinner and charmed them back. I was the invisible glue holding his vision together. I just didn't realize that he thought the glue was holding him back. My phone rang. It was my assistant, Sarah. She was a sweet girl, young but sharp. She had been acting strange lately. Nervous, jumpy. "Mrs. Vance," she whispered. "Are you on your way?" "I'm just leaving, Sarah." "Is everything ready? Did the AV team get the slideshow of the early days I prepared?" There was a long pause. Lucas. I mean Mr. Vance. He changed the program, ma'am. He said the old photos were too dusty. He wants to focus on the future. I felt a prick of irritation. Dusty? Those photos are our history, Sarah. You can't have a 40th anniversary without honoring the first year. I know, Mrs. Vance. I'm sorry, Please be careful tonight. Careful? Sarah, it's a dinner party, not a construction site. I'll see you there. I hung up, shaking my head. Lucas was just being a perfectionist. He wanted to look modern. I could understand that. I decided to let it slide. Tonight was a celebration. I wasn't going to let a few missing photos ruin it. The limousine arrived. It was another one of Lucas's extravagances. I preferred driving my own car, but he insisted. "It looks better for the brand, Mom," he had said. As we pulled up to the Grand Hotel, the entrance was swarming with photographers. Vanguard Logistics was projected in massive blue lasers against the side of the building. It looked impressive. Cold but impressive. I stepped out, ready to walk the red carpet. I expected Lucas to be there to escort me. That was tradition. The CEO and the founder. But the entrance was empty, save for the event coordinator, a woman with a headset who looked stressed. "Name?" she asked, not looking up from her clipboard. "Margaret Vance," I said, waiting for the recognition. "Co-founder." She swiped her finger down the list. "Vance. Vance. Ah yes. You're checked in. Please proceed to the side entrance." I blinked. The side entrance. "The red carpet is for the executive team and VIP investors right now, ma'am." Mr. Vance gave strict instructions to keep the flow moving. Family members are to use the side door to avoid congestion. Family members. Not the founder. Not the chairwoman. Just a family member. Like a distant aunt or a cousin looking for a free meal. I felt a flush of heat rise up my neck. "Excuse me, young lady, but I built this company. I am not using the service entrance." She looked up, finally seeing me. Her eyes widened slightly, realizing her mistake, but she looked terrified. I'm so sorry, Mrs. Vance. I'm just following the script Lucas, Mr. Vance gave us. He was very specific. I didn't want to make a scene. Not yet. I swallowed my pride, that iron lump in my throat, and walked past her, straight onto the red carpet. The photographers flashed their cameras, but they were looking past me, waiting for someone more relevant. I walked into the ballroom. It was breathtaking. Chandeliers, ice sculptures, 500 people in tuxedos and gowns. But the atmosphere felt sterile. It didn't feel like the warm, rowdy company parties we used to have. It felt like a corporate merger. I scanned the room for table 1. The head table. That's where I always sat. Right next to Lucas. I made my way through the crowd, shaking hands with old colleagues. "Margaret, you look wonderful," said Bob, a fleet manager who had been with us for 20 years. "Big night for you. Big night for all of us, Bob." I smiled. I reached table 1. It was set for 10 people. I saw Lucas's name card. I saw the CFO's name. I saw the name of Mr. Sterling, our biggest investor, a man I had never met in person, but whose capital had saved us during the recession. I saw name cards for 3 tech consultants, who looked barely old enough to shave. I walked around the table twice. My name wasn't there. "Excuse me," I grabbed a passing waiter. "There must be a mistake. I'm Margaret Vance. Where am I sitting?" He checked his tablet. "Vance. Margaret. Ah yes, you're at table 42. 42. He pointed to the far back corner of the room, right next to the swinging double doors of the kitchen. I stared at him. Table 42, the overflow table. The table where you put the interns, the second cousins, the people you have to invite but wish didn't come. My son had put me at the kids' table. For a moment I thought about leaving. I thought about turning around, getting in a taxi and going home to cry into my pillow. But then I remembered 1994. I remembered the truckers' strike. I remembered standing on a loading dock in freezing rain, convincing 50 angry men to get back on the road, because I gave them my word I would fix their pay. I didn't run then. I wasn't going to run now. I walked to table 42 with my head high. I sat down. The other people at the table were 3 summer interns and a freelance graphic designer. They looked at me with confusion. "Are you lost?" One of the interns asked. "No," I said, unfolding my napkin with deliberate precision. "I'm Margaret Vance. I own the building you're sitting in." The intern choked on his water. Dinner was a blur. I barely tasted the filet mignon. I watched table 1. I saw Lucas laughing, pouring wine for Mr. Sterling. Sterling was an older man, distinguished, with a poker face that gave nothing away. He didn't seem to be talking much, he was watching. Observing. Lucas, on the other hand, was preening like a peacock. He was in his element. He didn't look in my direction once. Not once. Then the lights dimmed. A hush fell over the room. Spotlight on the stage. Techno music started thumping. A video played on the massive screens. Fast cuts of drones, automated warehouses, robot sorting packages. Not a single human face. Not a single truck. And certainly not the picture of me and Bill in 1985. Lucas bounded onto the stage. He looked handsome, I'll give him that. He had his father's jawline, but his eyes were cold. "Good evening, Vanguard," he shouted. Applause rippled through the room. 40 years, Lucas began, pacing the stage. 40 years of moving boxes from point A to point B. It's a cute story. A nice story, but let's be honest. It's a dinosaur story. I felt a chill go down my spine. For decades, this company was run on paper, on handshakes, on gut feelings. He made air quotes with his fingers, mocking the very things that had built his inheritance. But we are entering a new era. The era of Vanguard 2.0. No more intuition, only algorithms. No more wasted sentiment, only efficiency. The crowd applauded, but it was polite. The older employees looked uncomfortable. The consultants at table 1 cheered loudly. And to build the future, Lucas continued, his voice dropping to a serious, somber tone, we have to be willing to let go of the past. We have to prune the branches that are weighing down the tree. He paused for effect. He looked out into the darkness of the ballroom. Tonight, we are not just celebrating an anniversary. We are announcing a transition. A changing of the guard. He finally looked towards the back of the room. Towards table 42. A spotlight swung around, blinding me. I froze. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a round of applause for my mother, Margaret Vance. The room clapped. I stood up, squinting into the light. I forced a smile. I thought, okay, this is it. He's going to acknowledge me. He's going to say thank you. Mom, Lucas said, his voice amplified by the speakers. You've worked hard, you've worked long. But we all know that the pace of today's business is overwhelming. It's fast, it's digital, and frankly, it's a young man's game. My smile faltered. I know you've been tired lately. He lied. I know you've been struggling to keep up with the new systems. And I love you too much to watch you fail. A murmur went through the crowd. This wasn't a tribute. This was a public dressing down. So tonight, I am thrilled to announce that Margaret is officially stepping down from the board of directors, effective immediately, to enjoy a very well-deserved, permanent retirement. The air left the room. I hadn't agreed to this. We hadn't even discussed it. A hostess walked up to my table and handed me a box. I opened it numbly. It was a crystal clock, the kind you buy at a mall kiosk. It had thanks for the time etched on it. Go to the beach, Mom, Lucas said, grinning like he had just given me a gift. Drink a margarita. Knit a sweater, you're done, you're free. Vanguard is safe in my hands now. I'm taking us to the moon. He gestured for applause. Let's hear it for Margaret. Enjoy your rest. The applause was scattered, confused. People were looking at me. Some with pity, some with shock. I stood there, the cheap crystal clock heavy in my hands. My legs felt like lead, my own son. He wasn't just firing me. He was humiliating me. He was telling the world I was senile, incompetent, a relic to be put on a shelf. He was stripping me of my identity, in front of the people I had led for 4 decades. I looked at him on that stage. He looked so triumphant. He thought he had won. He thought that by shaming me, he made himself look strong. I felt a tear slide down my cheek. I angrily wiped it away. I would not cry, not here, not in front of him. I placed the clock on the table next to the intern's half-eaten dessert. I picked up my purse. I didn't look at the spotlight. I turned to the exit. "That's right, Mom," Lucas called out, a cruel joke in his voice. "Beat the traffic. Past your bedtime anyway." Some of the consultants laughed. I reached for the door handle. My hand was shaking. I just wanted to get to the fresh air. I wanted to disappear. "Sit down, Lucas." The voice was not loud, but it carried across the room like a thunderclap. It was deep, resonant, and absolutely commanding. I stopped. The room went dead silent. Lucas froze on stage. "Excuse me." At table 1, the man who had been silent all night stood up. "Mr. Sterling, the billionaire investor. The man who owned 51% of the voting shares he had bought when we went public, shares Lucas thought were in his pocket." Sterling was a tall man, impeccably dressed. He didn't look at Lucas. He turned his chair around and looked directly at me, standing by the kitchen doors. I said, "Sit down, boy," Sterling repeated, his voice dropping an octave, filled with a dangerous calm. "You seem to be confused about who runs this company." Lucas laughed nervously. "Mr. Sterling, please. We can discuss the transition later. This is a celebration." "There is no transition," Sterling said, picking up a microphone from the podium, "because you don't have the authority to retire the chairman." I'm the CEO," Lucas stammered. "I make the operational decisions." "And you've made a lot of them," Sterling said. He walked toward the center of the room. "I've been reviewing the books, Lucas. The real books. Not the slide deck you sent me." Lucas went pale. "I know about the Project X losses," Sterling said. "I know about the 3 warehouses you sold to cover your crypto investments. I know that this company is currently bleeding cash at a rate of $1 million a week." Gasps rippled through the room. The employees looked at each other in horror. "But," Sterling continued, "I also know why we haven't gone bankrupt yet." He pointed a finger at me. "I know that every night, between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m., someone logs into the secure server. Someone fixes the shipping routes you messed up. Someone renegotiates the supplier contracts you ignored. Someone moves personal funds, her own savings, into the payroll account, so the drivers get their checks on Friday." I held my breath. He knew. I had covered Lucas's tracks for 2 years, trying to save him, trying to save the company. I never told a soul. "I didn't invest in Vanguard 2.0, Lucas," Sterling said, his voice rising. "I invested in Margaret Vance. I invested in the woman who built this from nothing. And I'll be damned if I sit here and watch a spoiled child disrespect the only person in this room who actually knows how to work." Sterling turned to me. The spotlight followed him. "Mrs. Vance," he said, his tone softening to one of immense respect, "please come to the stage. I believe you have a seat at table 1 that has been waiting for you." I looked at Lucas. He was shrinking on the stage, looking smaller than I had ever seen him. I looked at Sterling. And then I looked at the crowd. The fleet managers, the drivers, the warehouse staff. They were all standing up, one by one. A standing ovation that started low and turned into a roar. I straightened my spine. I adjusted my shawl. "I'm coming, Mr. Sterling," I said. And as I walked back through that ballroom, I wasn't the tired old woman my son had tried to paint. I was the matriarch, and I was coming to take back my house. The walk from table 42 to the stage was the longest walk of my life, but also the most clarifying. With every step, the sound of the applause grew louder. A rolling thunder of support from the drivers in their union jackets, the warehouse managers in their ill-fitting suits, and the secretaries who had been with us since the fax machine era. They weren't clapping for Vanguard 2.0. They were clapping for Margaret Vance. I climbed the stairs to the stage. The lights were blindingly hot. Lucas stood by the podium, looking like a deer, caught in the headlights of an 18-wheeler. He was sweating, his perfect hair plastering to his forehead. He held the microphone like a lifeline he was afraid to drop. Mr. Sterling waited for me. He extended a hand, helping me up the final step with the grace of a gentleman. From a bygone era. Mrs. Vance, Sterling said. His voice amplified across the silent room. My apologies for the seating arrangement. I believe this is where you belong. He gestured to the center stage. I took my place. I didn't look at the audience yet. I looked at my son. Mom, Lucas whispered off mic. His eyes were wide, pleading. Mom, please, don't let him do this. We can talk about this in the car. Just play along. Play along. That had been my role for 3 years. Play the supportive mother. Play the silent fixer. Play the retiree. I looked at him, really looked at him, and realized the boy in the truck cabin was gone. In his place was a stranger who valued optics over integrity. I'm done playing, Lucas, I said, my voice steady without the microphone. Sterling stepped forward, taking command of the room again. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight was supposed to be a celebration of the future. So let's talk about the future of Vanguard Logistics. He pulled a folder from his jacket pocket. Lucas, Sterling said, turning to my son. You announced a structural change tonight. You were right. But you got the personnel wrong. Mr. Sterling, Lucas stammered, trying to regain his CO bravado. I am the majority operational officer. You can't just come in here and… I exercised the clawback clause in the original investment agreement. 45 minutes ago, Sterling interrupted, his voice cutting like a scalpel. When the debt-to-equity ratio hits a certain level of insolvency, which you achieved by buying that private jet you hid in the marketing budget, control reverts to the primary investor. A gasp went through the room. The private jet. The rumor that had been circulating for months was true. You can't prove that. Lucas choked out. I don't have to, Sterling said calmly. Your mother already paid for it. Lucas whipped his head toward me. What? Sterling turned to the audience. For the last 18 months, Lucas Vance has been siphoning company funds to cover bad personal investments in cryptocurrency and real estate. And for the last 18 months, Margaret Vance has been liquidating her personal assets, her retirement accounts, her properties, even her late husband's life insurance policy, to cover the holes in the ledger so that you, he pointed to the employees, didn't miss a paycheck. The room was so quiet you could hear the ice melting in the glasses. She didn't do it to protect the stock price, Sterling continued. She did it to protect her son from prison. And she did it to protect your families from unemployment. I felt the tears prickling my eyes again, but I held them back. The secret was out. The burden I had carried in silence was finally visible. Sterling turned to Lucas. And how did you repay her? You put her by the kitchen door. You handed her a $50 clock. And you told her she was obsolete. Lucas was shaking now. He looked small. The arrogance had evaporated, leaving behind a terrified child. Lucas Vance, Sterling said, his voice booming like a judge's gavel. You are hereby relieved of your duties as CEO. Effective immediately. Security is waiting backstage to escort you from the premises. Do not return to the office. Your personal effects will be mailed to you. Fired? Lucas whispered. At my own gala. You tried to fire your mother at her own anniversary, Sterling replied coldly. I find the symmetry poetic. Lucas looked at me one last time. Mom? You're going to let him do this? I'm your son. I took the microphone from the podium. It felt heavy in my hand, familiar. I looked at the 500 faces staring back at me. Then I turned to Lucas. You are my son, I said, my voice echoing through the hall. And because I love you, I have saved you 1,000 times. I paid your debts. I fixed your messes. I hid your failures. But I realized tonight that I wasn't saving you, Lucas. I was enabling you. I took a step closer to him. A leader takes responsibility. A leader protects their people. You sacrificed your people to feed your ego. And tonight, you tried to sacrifice me. Mom, I'm sorry, he blubbered, tears finally spilling over. I wanted to prove I could do it. Then go prove it, I said softly. But you'll do it without my money, without my name, and without my safety net. You're on your own, Lucas. For the first time in your life, you are truly on your own. I nodded to the security guards waiting in the wings. They stepped forward. Lucas didn't fight them. He slumped, defeated, and let them lead him away. As he walked down the stairs, no one clapped. No one booed. They just watched him go, a king without a kingdom. When the doors closed behind him, the tension in the room broke. Sterling turned to me. He smiled, a genuine warm expression that transformed his stern face. "Margaret," he said, "the ship is listing, but it's not sunk, not yet." He gestured to the empty CEO spot. "The board is unanimous. We don't want a search committee. We don't want a new hotshot. We want the person who built the engine. Margaret, will you accept the position of CEO and chairwoman of Vanguard Logistics? We will give you full autonomy. Whatever you need to fix this." The crowd erupted. "Margaret! Margaret!" The chant started at table 42 and swept through the room. People were standing on chairs. Sarah, my assistant, was crying and clapping. It was the moment of ultimate vindication. I had won. I had defeated the usurper. I was being offered the crown back, with more power than I ever had before. I looked at the cheering crowd. I looked at the shiny logo on the screen. I looked at the company I had spent 40 years building brick by brick, mile by mile. And I felt heavy. I thought about the 2 a.m. alarm clocks, the stress headaches, the missed birthdays, the years I spent trying to mold Lucas into a leader, only to create a monster. I thought about the house I had sold to keep this company alive. I looked at Sterling. He was waiting for my yes. I raised the microphone. "Thank you," I said. The chanting died down. "Thank you, Mr. Sterling, and thank you to every single one of you who kept this company moving." I took a deep breath. 40 years ago, my husband and I bought a truck. We wanted to build something that would last. We wanted to build a legacy. I paused, looking at the empty spot where Lucas had stood. But somewhere along the way, the legacy became a cage. I have spent the last decade fighting to keep this company the same, fighting to fix mistakes I didn't make, fighting to hold on to a past that is already gone. I looked at Sterling. "You asked me to fix this, Mr. Sterling, and I will tell you exactly how to do it. You need fresh blood. But not Lucas's kind of fresh. You need someone who knows the tires, not just the spreadsheets." I pointed to the front row to a woman named Elena. She was the VP of Operations, a woman who had started as a dispatcher and worked her way up. She was sharp, tough, and honest. Lucas had sidelined her because she challenged him. "Elena Rodriguez," I said. "She's the best logistics mind in this room. Give her the job." Elena's jaw dropped. Sterling looked surprised, then intrigued. "As for me," I continued, feeling a sudden lightness in my chest, a feeling I hadn't felt since Bill died. Lucas was right about one thing tonight. It is time for a transition. I took the cheap crystal clock off the podium where I had set it down. "I accept my retirement," I said, smiling, "but not because I'm obsolete, but because I've finally realized that I have nothing left to prove to anyone." "Mrs. Vance," Sterling said, stepping closer, his voice low. "Are you sure? You built this. It's yours." "It was mine," I corrected him. "Now it's just a business. And I have other things to build." I placed the microphone on the podium. "Good night, Vanguard. Drive safe." I walked down the stairs. The silence lasted for a heartbeat, and then the applause started again. Different this time. Not cheering for a boss, but celebrating a legend. I walked straight to table 42. "Sarah," I said to my assistant, who was wiping her eyes, "grab your purse." "Mrs. Vance," she sniffled. "Where are you going?" "I'm leaving. And you're coming with me. You're the best organizer I know. And I'm going to need a partner for my next project. I can't pay you what Vanguard pays you. Yet. But I promise it won't be boring." Sarah didn't hesitate. She grabbed her bag and stood up. "I'm in." We walked out of the ballroom together, leaving the crystal chandeliers and the corporate drama behind us. As the double doors swung shut, I took a deep breath of the cool night air. It smelled like rain and exhaust fumes. It smelled like freedom. Epilogue. 1 year later. The office of Vance and Associates wasn't in a glass skyscraper. It was in a converted brick warehouse in the industrial district. It had big windows, exposed beams, and the constant hum of activity. We didn't move boxes anymore. We moved people. After the gala, word got out. Not just about the scandal, but about the woman who had secretly run a logistics empire. While her son played CEO, my phone started ringing and didn't stop. But the calls weren't from recruiters. They were from women. Women running family businesses who were being pushed out by their sons. Women in corporate boardrooms who were being talked over. Women who had inherited messes and didn't know how to clean them up. They needed a fixer. They needed a mentor. They needed Margaret Vance. I sat at my desk, reviewing the strategy for our newest client, a textile manufacturer in Ohio on the brink of bankruptcy. Margaret. Sarah walked in holding a tablet. She looked confident, professional. She was running the day-to-day operations now, and she was brilliant at it. What is it, Sarah? We got a call on the general line, she said, her voice dropping. It was Lucas. I paused, my pen hovering over the paper. I hadn't spoken to Lucas in 6 months. The last I heard, he was facing an SEC investigation and had sold his condo to pay legal fees. What did he want? I asked, keeping my eyes on the document. He asked for a job, Sarah said. He said he's willing to start as a driver. He said he just needs a chance. I put the pen down. I looked out the window at the city skyline. Somewhere out there, Vanguard Logistics was thriving under Elena's leadership and Sterling's money. The stock was up. The employees were happy. Tell him we're not hiring drivers, I said. Sarah nodded, turning to leave. But Sarah, I added. She stopped. Tell him to call the trucking school in Jersey, the one Bill and I went to in '78. Tell him if he completes the 6-week course and gets his CDL on his own, then he can call me back. And maybe we'll talk. Sarah smiled. I'll tell him. She left the office, closing the door softly. I picked up the photo of Bill and me that sat on my desk, the same photo Lucas had tried to hide. You were right, Bill, I whispered. The boy had to learn the hard way. I looked at the cheap crystal clock sitting on my bookshelf, tucked between industry awards and thank you cards. Thanks for the time. I smiled. I had plenty of time left, and I wasn't going to waste a second of it.